I'm using my phone this time. I'm hoping the sound quality will be a bit better. Unfortunately, I do have my fan running because it is summer in East Tennessee. We are full on summer. Several days in the 90s, and the house is getting a little hot. But I'm going to read one more excerpt, or another excerpt from The Goddess Path. And to give you a little outline of of how this book works, it takes several goddesses from mostly Greek, and it begins by, a nice title page for them, like for Athena. It's got a nice little title page. Gray-eyed one, I sing of you, wisest and most beautiful. Relentless Athena, protector of cities, strong, armed, and fair. Hail to you, Athena. I may never live without the shield of your protection. And then what it does, is it has this start page where it will post some ancient text, either some kind of hymn or ode or poem to the goddess that was written in ancient times, ideally from a worshiper or someone who knew of those who did worship her. And then it'll talk about the myth and the meaning. And so last week's excerpt on Gaia, we covered that particular section of how she breaks down each of these chapters, the myth and the meaning. So the second section that she does in each of these books is called the symbols. So I'm going to read this time from the symbols of Athena. Athena is most vividly symbolized by the snake, which, in the famous statue in her main temple, rears up beside her, taller than any human viewer. Snakes are generally misinterpreted by contemporary Western viewers, conditioned by the story of Eve and her apple, to see the serpent as evil and dangerous. Freud didn't help matters, associating the snake, and lots of other things, with male genital equipment. What a protective virgin goddess is doing in the company of a huge snake seems now a bit questionable, if not suggestive. Yet the snake had other meanings to the people who originated this image of the goddess. First and foremost, it was a symbol of protection, for without serpent's assistance, grain stored for winter would have fed mice, not men. In addition, the snake's well-known ability to shed its skin and emerge, apparently reborn, gave rise to an association with rebirth. The statue of a goddess standing by her snake, familiar then, would have been a powerful message of protective strength and hope to those who entered her temple. Armor and weapons are also among Athena's symbols. She was frequently sculpted wearing a helmet, carrying a shield or spear. It has often been noticed that with the rise of private property, previously pacific mother goddesses began to appear as goddesses of war, for when the rich fields were commonly held, there was no need to fight for their use. As land began to be owned by the wealthier citizens, the goddess took on a new role as defender of the city's wealth and safety. Apparently opposite to the imagery of the sword and shield, Athena also is envisioned as the goddess of the loom and the spindle. A weaver, she once turned a woman into a spider, proclaiming to have greater skill than her own. Excuse me. But there is, in fact, little contradiction in her imagery, for textile production was an important part of each home's economy, and therefore of the richness of the city as a whole. Without such wealth, there would be no need for her strong arm of protection. Finally, the most charming of Athena's symbols is that of the owl, which appears on early Athenian coins as an alternative image to the goddess in human form. In some statues and paintings, an owl sits on the goddess's shoulders, while in others it flies in the air above her. Still recognized as a symbol for wisdom, the owl suggests that Athena's power is so strong that it needs to be held in check by careful consideration and judicious concern for the outcome of any endeavor. So, with that being said, the particular way she expresses some of the myths in here are stories that I haven't been familiar with. So I am going to actually have to go and check that out. And this is like the second time I've actually sat down with this book because I wanted to share it for our book of the month. So I do need to check into the veracity of some of her interpretations of the myth or explanation of the myth. I think it's obvious that this is a positive feminine message, and when we start reclaiming the purposes of a goddess like Athena especially, When we remove the war aspect out of it, it's really more about wisdom. So I tend to think of her more as a wisdom goddess, not so much a war goddess. I think the story of her being born out of the head of Zeus is a patriarchal remnant of probably something much deeper, or in reaction to feminine power that was at that point in time beginning to be sublimated much more aggressively in cultural and in society. So anyway, that's the goddess path, myths, invocations, and rituals. We kind of covered the symbols section of each chapter that she puts in, and next time I'll pull a different section and a different goddess, and we'll take another look at the goddess path, myths, invocations, and rituals by Patricia Monahan. See you guys soon.